Hey, cousin.
Hi, beautiful. How are you?
Oh my gosh, just that little thing that Maurice posted is already getting me all teary eyed. This is going to be a deep show.
I know, I
It's
know.
gonna be
Try
a deep
not,
show.
try not to be emotional, but it's okay.
Ooh, that's going to be a hard one. a hard ask. That's a hard ask, but
try not to, baby. Hang in there, boo.
I'm trying. We're going to try. We're going to try. We had a little technical difficulty with my laptop, so we're trying something a little different. That's why you see Vic's name with mine, because he's just going to pull up next
Oh,
to me when we get our guests on. But
okay. My
um
cousin-in-law gonna be up in there.
yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
cool.
So um because yeah, we got a pretty deep show tonight.
Hmm. Yes, we
So
do.
yeah, it's a deep show. It's suicide um awareness month, September, if
Mhm.
y'all are tuning in, didn't know that. And we wanted to close out the month and Buzz and Cousin style, and talk about that topic. It's very, very important, near and dear to us. Um, but before we do that, before we bring in our guests, who we again thank them for their time.
Yes,
Um,
yes, yes.
so it's been a minute. We haven't had an episode, I think, since May. We have a very busy summer.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
some of y'all that have been listening and been our listeners for a while, um, if you remember, cousin T had found her biological mom, her
Hmm,
birth mom,
hmm.
after, what is it, T, 47, 42
Uh,
years?
it's 48, 48
48,
years. Hmm,
48 years.
hmm.
So she was supposed to go and see her back in July, and that didn't work out. But she got a chance to see her around Labor Day weekend. So T, we want to hear about that reunion, the emotions. I mean, we already know this is going to be a very emotional show, so let's get it
Right,
rolling.
right.
Your first word.
I try to. I'm going to try my best not to be emotional tonight.
No, you know
um,
what? It is what it is. You know what I mean? I think it makes it more natural, more raw that way when we get to be ourselves and
mhm,
bring those emotions. So go ahead and
mhm.
tell us how it went.
Well, I visited Adelanto, California. That's where my mother and my father. Her name is Jacqueline, and my dad. His name is Oscar. That's not my birth dad, but I still call him Daddy. And the surprise in itself was truly amazing. The first person I saw when I came through the door was my brother, and he
Wow.
jumped on me, and he's probably tuned in tonight. What up, Tim? That's a nickname my grandmother gave him because he had them little red cheeks and he liked tomatoes, so they used to call him Tim. But his birth name is Dewan, and that right there in itself was emotional because I always knew that I had a brother, just not be able to see him and hold him and touch him. So we made up because my mother's side of the family, we lit, we're crazy. We like to have fun.
Right.
And so I skipped ahead. I went too far because I'm still nervous. But my mom and my dad picked me up at the airport, and it was
Oh,
funny because we were trying to find each other. You know how the airport is always messy, departures, arrivals,
right.
whatever.
Yeah.
So we kept calling each other, and I'm like, well, we just gonna yell each other name. We're gonna be real, real
Yeah.
silly. So we walking down the thing, and we like, Daddy, and he like, Teresa, Daddy, Teresa.
Like
So we
Mark
saw each other.
almost.
Yeah, yeah. So we saw each other, and I hugged him like, just so hard. And then I walked up to the car, and there she was. And
Oh,
so,
wow.
yeah. So my first words to her was, "Hey, little girl, you gonna get out the car?" So she got out the car, and it was like a load was lifted off of me. It
Hmm.
felt good to actually know, wow, this is the lady that birthed me. This is the woman that created me.
Yeah.
And we played it off. We held our tears. I am so much like her in so many ways. Oh my God, it's
Yeah.
unbelievable. But we played it off and held our tears. And then we wound up having two exciting things. Only seeing her was exciting. My uncle, one of her baby brothers, Bernard, was having a surprise birthday party.
Oh,
So
nice.
yeah, so when I got to the party, everybody was there. My Uncle Lionel, my two other aunts, my Auntie Renee, my Auntie Erlene. So we just had,
So it was like one big
man.
family reunion
It
almost.
was. It was
Yeah.
almost. It felt like I was performing like at a show or something. Because you know how you come in and be like, "Hey," and all
Yeah.
eyes on me. And
Yeah.
we all love to sing and do karaoke. So one song that was playing, I think it was by the OJ's, and my uncle and I was like, "You know how to make me feel so good." And, we just were acting silly and crying. So it
Yeah.
was a good time. It really was a good
Yeah.
time. My mother, when we were playing spades, after I whipped my aunties because they don't know how to play. I was just playing, y'all. I had to throw that shout out because they think they could play. She fell into my arms and said, "I'm so sorry, baby.
Oh.
Yeah, for not being there. Oh, you're not gonna make me do this, cousin."
Listen, cousin, I put on no eye makeup tonight because I knew that my tears were going to be streaming tonight. The only thing I put
Yeah.
on was my lips, but my eyes, no makeup because I didn't want to have
Yeah.
that mascara mess running down. So
Yeah. She just basically kept apologizing, for not being there, and saying that she's glad that I'm here. And she said, "You are so pretty, and I'm so glad that you were able
you
to
are.
forgive me." Yeah,
Yeah.
thank you. And I told her, I said, "Well, mommy, that was never my intention to, see you and attack you."
Yeah.
And we had a lot of emotional moments.
Yeah.
It was just great. Like I said, it was something that I had been waiting for all my life. All my grammar school friends and people that are in my family today. And I have to give a special shout out to Alice, because Alice went with me to
Miss
record this.
Alice Boswell.
Yeah,
Shout out
yeah,
to the Queen
yeah.
Alice.
So
Right.
she took a lot of pictures,
Yeah.
and we did the interview, and she had separate interviews with them because eventually we're going to incorporate um, a play and then a movie about living your truth.
I love
Um,
it. I
and the
love it.
title of it would be On the Other Side. So
Beautiful.
yeah. So
Beautiful.
I just for everybody that was so supportive. The main point I want to mention to people though, you have to have a forgiving heart because you never know what the situation was.
Mhm.
You just don't know, and the way that
Right.
things are going now with the senseless gun violence and just things that are
Mhm.
causing premature deaths, especially
Yep.
even like with COVID. That
Mhm.
was one reason why it stopped me from going because I hadn't got vaccinated yet.
Mhm.
So I had to get my vaccinations and just
Yeah.
you're nervous trying to just go out, you know what I mean, into the
Right.
public.
Yeah.
But that was one of how you have like a list of things you want to do in life,
Yeah.
and now that I
Now you
did
can
that,
check that
I
off the
feel like
box.
yeah I could check it out.
Yeah.
Next is helicopter.
Girl,
Yeah, that's
that might have
next.
been on my list at one point, but it came off really quickly.
Yeah,
But
so that's next. That's next.
I'm glad it was a positive experience. I'm glad that you got to connect with your mom and it was just
Yeah.
I'm glad that it was what you were hoping it would be,
It
you
did. It
know.
did. Like some people were like, "Well, don't get, T Bizzle. We know how you are. You're very emotional, so don't
Yeah,
go with the expectation of you."
right.
But I didn't listen because
You never do.
that was my dream,
Yeah.
and that's what I wanted, and I've been saying it like I said for 48 years. So
Yeah.
I planted that seed, and it happened. So people, if you want to find your loved ones or people in the family, it's
Yeah.
possible you can do it, and
It
I'm
is.
I'm relieved now. So now I got somewhere to go for the holidays.
There you go. That's perfect. That's perfect. Yes, I'm so glad that it worked out the way it did, and now you have new family. I mean,
Yes, yes.
my mom and I had a similar situation this summer. She didn't know her dad growing up and
Mm.
found out that she's got two sisters on that side of the family. And
Wow.
one of her older sisters reached out to her on Facebook and said, "Hey, I think I'm your sister." And we went out there in California, just like you went. We were in California in July and met her, and it was a wonderful experience. They welcomed us with open arms, and it's just like it's new family now. And gives me just another reason to go to California. It gives you another reason to go to California.
Right.
So I'm really glad. I'm really happy that worked. That's excellent.
Thank you. I was nervous. Yeah. Ooh, I was nervous. Right up until the day of, I didn't have bubble guts, but I just had this nervous feeling like, this is really finna happen. And so when it happened, it made it more emotional. It was like a Hallmark movie or something,
Right.
It was just, but it was like everything
I
thought.
For so long, and then it was supposed to happen in July, and then that got postponed, so it felt like it just made it go and drag on even longer. And then it's finally there, and you're like, oh God, this is actually happening. This is for real. It's almost like you're kind of in another universe or something.
Yeah.
Like a different reality, but that's incredible. That's incredible.
Thank you so much, cousin. And thank you, fans that are tuning in. Thank you all for the support and the love.
Thank you.
I needed it. And we talk. If we don't talk every day, we talk almost every week. And every conversation. Every conversation, she always ends it with, I love you. Well, thank you so much for forgiving me. And I always tell her, yes, I'm a nerd. I always say, I love you too, mommy.
Yeah, that's incredible. Yeah, you do. You have to have a forgiving heart, incredibly forgiving heart, because, it's, you can't change the past. The past is in the past, and you can't change it. So living in the past will do no good for you. It will do no good for anything, your mental health, your emotional health, none of that. So to be able to forgive, it may not take the weight off of that person's shoulders, but it lifts it off of you. And that, okay, I have forgiven you. So now I am cleansed of that heaviness, and for her to continue saying thank you, that shows you that she does hold some accountability. Like she knew that it hurt you, and she knew that, man, I messed up, and so that's good. And that's good, because there's oftentimes where we could tell a person we forgive them and they'd be like, for what? Because they don't know that they did anything. But the fact that she owns it, it just makes it that much more special and more meaningful for you, and for you all to continue that relationship, and enjoy what you got now, and just like start fresh, start new. Right.
It's almost like I reverted to, like I'm a baby, like I'm 5 or 6 years old. And I love it. I mean, every time, because my friends tease me, and my honey, she teases me too, but they all tease me like, yeah, we know when your mother called, because you like, mommy. And I'm like, so I'm just, I'm going to do it. That's the way I am.
Yeah, exactly. And then another really wonderful thing. So for those of you that don't know, we had a very great event with B-Side 606 Mania 2, our stand-up comedy event, and T was our host. And she came on and did a little reveal. T, if you don't mind me telling it, she had announced that she is in a relationship, and she is so happy and so it's got like the butterflies flying. So T, can you tell our people about your love? I mean, I saw you and the smile on your face, you were just glowing, and you were just so happy. And this was even before you had that reunion with your mom. So
right.
If you want to just a little bit, just you don't have to give it all away. We have other shows to do, but a little something. Get us in your happiness there. We could all use a little happiness.
So again, that's another thing that's on your list for life when you meet that special someone. So I have finally met that special someone, and her name is L'Oreal, and she is a business owner. She is the owner, founder, creator, marketing, everything of a skincare product called All Buttered Up. So you can go to her Facebook page. That was a business plug. I hope you like that, babe. But yeah, I met her, and I don't know if I want to say it was love at first sight, but there was an attraction, and we dated. And I have to tell people sometimes you don't know who your person is.
Right.
We go with the expectations of, what if I meet this person, I'm going to change them by doing this, or if I meet this person, they can make me do this. It's always something connected, something negative. And you have to understand that's not what, my opinion, that's not what relationships are based on. That's not how they last. They start out like, how you and my play cousin Vic, you start out as friends. And then during that friendship, you learn one another, your likes, your dislikes. You got to have a sense of humor. And I was so pleased to meet somebody that actually likes my jokes. It has a sense of humor. And she's just a bundle of joy. She's so respectful. She's so passionate about everything she does. One of her catchphrases is that she's life-changing. And yeah, she's definitely life-changing. And I'm happy. I'm like a little kid at the Christmas store. Mommy, I'm getting 4 PS4s and a brand new bike. I just want to say to our fans, you have to whatever you put out in the universe, that's what you get. Absolutely. That's exactly what you get. So if you study saying, if you study talking negative and you constantly talking about people or complaining and whining, that's pretty much how your life gonna be.
I believe that.
That's pretty much how you be. I'm not saying
it has been the summer of T Bizzle. It has been the summer of T Bizzle.
Yeah. It's been a lot, and it's more to come. I mean, wait till the end of the year. We just gonna have some holiday specials for you. Okay.
Yes. I love it.
Thank you, cousin, for that.
I would love for us to start to bring in our guests, just a little intro for them. So these 4 people are incredible souls who are giving us their time. Maurice, Vic, Lindsay, and Angel. So all 4 of these people have been touched by a loved one passing away from suicide. And they're taking time to share their stories with us. And like we said, this will be a very emotional show. Some things might be triggering, but, please know that we're here for you. We have the number, to give out to you guys if you or somebody might be going through something like that. So without further ado, if we could bring in our guests, that would be incredible. All right.
There go, Miss Angel.
And like I said, I'll be sharing my camera with Vic. So
hi, Lindsay. Hi, King Prophet.
All right.
Good evening.
I want to see your face. There you go. All right. Hi, you guys. Thank you so much again for joining us tonight and giving us some of your time. Really quick, I'm just going to run through introductions. So we have Maurice Prophet, who is our CEO and founder of B-Side Studios, also our producer for Buzzin Cuzzins podcast. We have my lovely husband, Vic, who's here. Lindsay, who I have known since grade school, and I'm getting emotional just seeing her here. I'm already.
Look, she just started already.
Lindsay, I have to say, I was very, 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 very happy when you said you would do the show. It really, you have no idea. Okay, compose yourself. Okay. And then, of course, last but not least, Miss Beautiful Angel Simmons, who is a grief and loss coach who has literally been someone who has been on call 24/7 on a crisis line. And so she's going to kind of be our person to tie things in, share her experiences, whatever feels natural, I'm gonna go with it. So we want to go ahead and just kind of address that, I think oftentimes we get under the assumption that someone who is contemplating suicide should look some way, act some type of way, be some type of way. And really, it can be the complete opposite. I don't know about you all, but I always go back to Robin Williams. We always look to him as he was the comedian. What? Why? We always think it's going to be the person who is the depressed one or the sad one, and sometimes it's the complete opposite. Sometimes it's the one that's the class clown or the one that's always there for everybody, and just wearing a really good mask. So the beauty of our guests is each one of these guests has had someone that has passed away from suicide in different age groups. So we can bring this that it's not just one age, one race, one sex, nothing like that. So I did want to go in age order. So Maurice will be speaking first on his friend Janine. Go ahead, Maurice, please share your story.
Absolutely. First and foremost, thank you very much for asking me to be a part of this. I know this is a very heavy emotional topic that we're tackling, and there's a lot that needs to be said about in terms of like the bravery that we all have tonight to be able to speak about this. It's very important because there's someone in the audience that needs to hear this. There's someone in the audience that might be going through something similar to this right now as we speak. And they need answers. They need some type of direction. They need some type of like an understanding, or just that feeling of knowing that they're not alone, going through this type of this very this very just like really strange path. When you're dealing with this. Um, so with per Chrissy's intro, yeah, what happened with my friend Janine. This was back in eighth grade, and it was crazy because Janine and I, we knew each other like since first grade. Like we were in grammar school together. She had a twin sister named Jeanette, Jean and Jeanette Bolin, and we all came up together. Through grammar school and all that stuff and everything. We were still in the same neighborhood. Um, and as obviously, just like with any other kid, you as time goes on, you develop into whom you are as an individual. And those two really did exemplify that, to the highest point. So much to the fact that like they were, by the time we got to eighth grade, they were polar opposites of each other. Jeanette was pretty popular. She was pretty popular. She was really well known, really well liked. Of course, like the boys were chasing after her because she was really pretty and all that good stuff and everything. And even though Janine was her twin sister, looked like her, all that stuff and everything. She was very different. She was more of a gothic type of girl. Like, she wore the black lipstick. She wore like the chain, like the choker around her neck with the spikes and all that stuff and everything. Really into heavy metal. She was really different, from Janine. So it really was kind of like something that you see from like a TV show or some kind of like like movie or whatever. In terms of like how opposite they were. But the thing was is that like that was the reason why Janine and I became so close, was because not that I was like one of those kind of kids, or so to speak, but because I was kind of I had struggles at that time when it came to like my social issues, like socially being able to be like accepted with like other people, and her and I found a bond because of that, because this type of social issues I was dealing with was similar to what she was dealing with, and we found a connection within that. We were in class together. It was a history class, and we got paired up, and we just started just like kind of like just talking about what we were going through. And like I said, even though her and I we've known each other for the past 8-9 years, this was probably the first time when we actually like really got close. And this is at the beginning of eighth grade. And from that point, when we were partners with each other, and after we had that conversation, we just became like really cool. We became really, really close with each other. And, to the point where we always worked together with our class stuff. We always we also had lunch together, so we would eat lunch. I'd see her sometimes, after school, hanging outside and everything like that. And so we developed a really good friendship. And in talking with her and getting to know her and just knowing her life, the way that she struggled a lot socially was a lot deeper than what I was dealing with. I was just dealing with guys being guys and just kind of ribbing on each other and whatnot and everything. And me having kind of some problems fitting in, but hers went a lot deeper than what I was going through, because she felt, even though there was no type of there wasn't any type of embedded competition between her and her sister, she felt it. She felt the difference in terms of the way how people treated her sister versus the way they treated her. And she felt it, she saw and she felt it. And that really did weigh in kind of deep into her, where it really did bother her a lot. And I think because, and even though her sister had no type of malice towards her because she still loved her, I don't think Jeanette really got it. And I think because Jeanette didn't really get it, it really did a lot. And there will be times where she would we would be talking and she would tell me that she's like, I just don't get it. I don't get any of this. I don't get any why these things happen or why things have to be the way they are. And to me, I was just thinking oh, she's having a bad day. She's having a bad day right now. So it is what it is. So, but I didn't really know how serious it was until about a week before she passed, a week before she took her life. Her just availability in terms of when someone is there but they're not there, she'd be there physically with me. We will be in class together, or we'll be hanging outside together, but she wouldn't be there. So I would just once again, my 8th grade mind is going to the fact that, okay, she's just having a bad day. And then it just seemed to get even darker with her. The day when I found out, she wasn't in class. She wasn't in school, actually. Excuse me. She wasn't in school for about 2 days. So of course you're thinking oh, your friend's out sick. They'll be back to school tomorrow. But I remember the school counselor came into our classroom, our history class, and she asked to talk to me. And I came out in the hallway with her. Her name was Miss Condon. And I was like, what's going on? I didn't know what was happening. I thought maybe I don't know if I got in trouble or whatever it was. And she was saying that I know you were friends with Janine. She hasn't been in school in the past couple of days. And I said, I know. And I said, yeah, I think she's sick. And she's like, no. And she's like, I'm really sorry to tell you this. And then she told me the news. And it was crazy, because then after that happened, it didn't really register with me. What do you mean? She hung herself? What do you mean? When she told me that, I just immediately thought wait, so is she just hurt in the hospital? Is she just, is she just she's at Lexington Brothers right now, and, going through whatever she has to go through. And it didn't really hit me that she was gone until Miss Condon was she's no longer with us. Really laying that into me. And then that day, I'll never forget, I saw Jeanette bawling, running out of school, bawling. And I think when I saw Jeanette, that's when it really did hit me that my friend was gone. And I, as an 8th grader, you don't know how to register that. It's so foreign, it's so odd, it's so different to you that you don't really know how to make sense of it, because it just seems so surreal. And we're talking about 1995 here, and it really wasn't that much of a topic, a conversation the way how it is right now. But that really did just really sat with me so heavy. And of course, like, you know, when you're in that situation, you're putting things together. Like, what did you notice before, or did she say anything to you before, or, you know, was there a way to stop that, or, you know, like, what, you know, you're trying to make sense of all this stuff and everything, and it's really becomes so even more complicated. So it took I went, my mom took me to the funeral. She dropped me off, and we went to the funeral, and you know, like, I couldn't even go. I couldn't look at the casket. I just couldn't do it. You know, I said I gave my piece, I gave my love, you know, the way how I felt was fitting, but I couldn't look in the casket. And, you know, it was just because, like, I didn't want my final memory of her to be that. I wanted my final memory of her to be what it was, you know, what we had before that even took place. And yeah, you know, and that's the thing, is that, like, you know, for many years after that, I would still, like, you know, revisit that whole thing in my head, you know, about what happened with her, because it was still so surreal, you know, and you know, that's the thing, is that, like, as I've gotten older, I just realized that you probably will never be able to make sense of this. And maybe that's okay. I don't know if it's okay or not, but it just is what it is, that you maybe not be able to make sense of it. And unfortunately, you know, and back in 2015, I lost my sister-in-law's husband, took his life as well too, in the same fashion. And my mind went immediately back to Janine as well. So, you know, it just now, like, it really, you know, it really just, like, lets you know that this is something that really is incredibly serious, that we need to really take seriously, and really be able to, like, you know, understand that, you know, when people are asking for help, or when they're you know, when they really are, like, you know, like, somewhat disconnected or different or removed, you know, love is really what is needed. You know, whenever you can provide it, however you can, or just even at the simple, like, just letting them know that you're there for them. And yeah, you know, so, like, you know, experience as an 8th grader was really bizarre, but, you know, as time went on, then, you know, I was able to understand a little bit, like, you know, how important it is to be more empathetic with, you know, with people whom you're with and your loved ones.
Yeah, I mean, I can't imagine. Obviously, it's hard to process at any age, you know, someone taking their own life. But I think especially in 8th grade, you know, I did look up a statistic, and it said that a 2019 survey showed that 8.9% of youth in grades 9 through 12 made at least one attempt, and female attempts almost twice as often as male. And, you know, I have a 15-year-old, you know, and that's always something that there's that struggle, because girls are always, they're catty, they're petty. I mean, they're at that age when they hit puberty. It's like, you know, they feel like they have to meet all these expectations, and seemed like Janine felt like she was living in her sister's shadow, you know, and trying to live up to that, and she couldn't, and she just couldn't understand it, and their brains are still developing at that age, you know, and for you to try to process that in 8th grade, like, you know, it's almost like that's something adults do. It's not something a teenager would do, right? I mean, that's not the first thing you would think of. I mean, Angel, what do you see on that? You know, I know you also had a friend in high school that passed away from
the first thing I was thinking is that adults can't process suicide. So it's impossible for a young person, a teenager, to, you know, fully accept that, understand it, try to take it apart and make it make sense. It doesn't make sense. Suicide does not make sense. In Illinois, suicide is the 3rd leading cause of death in ages 10 to 14. That's something we didn't know about, you know, years ago. That's something that the media doesn't talk about. And there's only been an uptick in conversation since Robin Williams, but also since 13 Reasons Why came out. Most recently, the Social Dilemma. You know, it's a few documentaries that are out there that are prompting some conversation, but it doesn't make sense in any age. Maurice said something very powerful and paying attention to the disconnect. That is something that we all have to really take on and be responsible for with the people that we care about when we see the disconnect, when we see changes in behavior, changes in clothing, eating habits, hygiene, things like that. Those are all noticeable reasons for you to say, hey, I see you. Is everything okay? The only thing we can do is to be there and to let people know that we're there, we care, we're available to talk, showing that love, showing that support. Suicide is the only death that is 100% preventable. And it's preventable when people are able to reach out and say, hey, I see you, because that's really what people want.
Yeah.
They want to be seen. And it's very difficult, especially with the teenage demographic, because teenagers are so temperamental. They're one way one day and one way the next day. You don't know if you should say good morning or compliment their hair or not, because they might go off. It's just the life of a teenager, especially the life of a teenage girl. So in instances like that, the best thing we can do is just be supportive and try to notice all those little nuances that go over people's heads on a regular basis.
Yeah, definitely. All right, thank you. Next, we have Vic, who's going to talk about his friend Mitchell. And Mitchell took his life at the age of 21. So I'm going to pass the mic to you.
Oh, is there a mic?
No.
Yeah, I didn't think there was a mic.
In the computer.
Woo! I don't even know how to begin. I don't even know what to say. I became friends, I guess you can say, because there was an open seat in Chuck Taylor's science class, and I was the only one there, and it had to do, honestly, with race at that point, because it was a predominantly weird school at the time, and my seat was the only one open, and he came over and said, is a seat taken? And I'm like, well, hell, if you could dissect a frog with me, then yeah, the seat's open, go for it. And from there, it was, the next day he asked me if I was into comic books, and then what kind of movies I like. And then from there, it grew into all night video games and beer. And yeah, I drank. I mean, I don't know what to tell you. I was a teenager. I drank. But we had the greatest of times. He was there for me every step of the way. I was there for him every step of the way. We got in a lot of trouble. We protected a lot of people. We protected ourselves. And it's, you think back to it, and, what Angel has said is true. And the thing that I would piggyback on with that is the fact that I don't know if it's an ego thing or a male thing or whatever, but I personally completely despise people, males in general, that think they have it all under control. And they think that, because I'm a guy, I got this. I don't got this. I don't got any of it. I don't got this. I don't got the kids. I got nothing. And with that being said, I mean, there was nothing that ever made me think that he would do something like that. He was powerful. He was strong. He made me feel like I can do anything at any time. The story that sticks with me and that'll stick with me forever is we went to a Bears game. We got in a little bit of trouble at a Bears game. And that was my fault, by the way, and Andy Frain's security. But we were walking along Lake Michigan, like the little sidewalk. And at the time, I was trying to get this girl, not this one, another one. We won't say names. And I couldn't do it. I was having weird mumbling problems around her. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know what to say. And I was very distraught a little bit about it. I just didn't know what to do. And I asked him, and he just, every time I bring something up, he's like, don't worry about it. You got it. And I would bring something up, and he's like, don't worry about it. You got it. You got it. And then finally I got really pissed off. And I said, why, what do you think I got? I don't got her, so I don't got it. What do you think I got? And I remember exactly where we were. I could picture it. I picture it almost every day when shit hits the fan at work, shit hits the fan with this one, with the kids. He just looked at me directly, and he's just like, because I believe in you. I know you can do it, and you'll do it. You've always done it before. You'll do it again. You always find a way to do it, and you're just going to do it. And that's it. And sure enough, maybe like a month later, I did get the girl. She turned out to be an absolute psychopath, but that's for another Buzzin Cuzzins that we talk about psychopathic girlfriends. But that was the kind of thing that was always there. It was real. It was emotional. I told him everything that happened in my life. He played a role in a relationship I had in high school. The girl I dated in high school wanted him, and he completely said, no, I'm not going to do that to Vic. I'll never do that to Vic. So that was the kind of thing he did. And, to talk about, like Marisa said, leading up to it, the last time I saw him was at a Best Buy. I was going in there to buy, I think I was going in there to buy like a Nintendo 64 or something like that. I don't know what it was. And he always had this way of getting my attention. And it would always be like this big, huge, like, yeah. And I turned around and I saw him, and he had this huge smile on his face. And we hugged by the CDs, because we always hugged, kind of like the whole Joey and Chandler thing. There was never a handshake. That was kind of weird for some reason. I don't know why. We just hugged. And, he said what I was doing. We were going to watch the Bears. We were going to, that's honestly one of the reasons I don't like the Bears. I mean, if you want to be completely honest, not because they absolutely suck, but because that meant something to him, and it doesn't mean as much anymore to me because of that. And then I remember the day I was downstairs in my basement, and I was chilling out, listening to some music, and we were trying to find a place to go to eat. And my dad screamed downstairs, like, hey, your friend's at the door. And I just immediately thought it was Mitchell. So I'm like, hey, let's just invite Mitchell to go to dinner with us. And I came upstairs, and it was my friend Jin, who was a mutual friend. And he just flat out told me, like, what happened. It happened I won't go into graphic detail, but it happened in a parking lot of a forest preserve. And that was it. I got no closure. I didn't get a funeral. And I won't go into very many details, but it's affected every part of my life to this day, specifically to this day. It affects my relationships. It affects my friendships. It affects the way I think, the way I act. And it'll never be the same. I mean, I have a best friend now that I love him to death. He's my best friend. And it bothers me that, I don't I have that inkling in my head, like I can't protect everything that happens to him. I can't protect the things that bother him. And you automatically pull that trigger in your head, like it's going to happen again. It's going to happen again. And then you start more relationships, and then you start more friendships, and then you try and rule the world and be Superman and try and protect everybody, and it makes you sick and it makes you tired, and you just, that's why I said, like, with the male side of it, the female side of it we've already brought up a little bit, but with the male side of it, if anybody's watching or listening or whatnot, it's an ego thing, and you got to put your ego in check, and you got to put everything in check. And that there's people out there that give a shit about you and they want to know about your problems, and even if they don't, tell them anyway. Someone's bound to listen, and yeah. So
yeah, thank you. Now what? Just really fast, because he had a pretty rough home life, yes.
Yeah.
From what you've told me about him.
We actually
just a little bit about that, because that definitely plays into things as well.
He lived with his grandmother. He lived with a single mom. We always used to joke about the fact that he never knew his dad, and we always used to joke about the fact that his dad was like a globetrotter, like literally a Harlem globetrotter. That's why he never came around, because he was always traveling. But yeah, I mean, there was always something. He dropped out of high school. We had to pick him up. He literally got basically dragged to Wisconsin against his will, pretty much, to live in Wisconsin with his uncle. And I remember on a Saturday, he just called up, because we used to hang out every Saturday and play games and eat donuts and drink beer. And he was going to miss, obviously. And then he called me up, and he's just like, hey, he walked from someplace in Wisconsin. He walked 30 some miles, and he started at like 5 a.m. and he just got to Great America. And we had to go pick him up at Great America so he could come back, and he got in a world of trouble, and my dad got involved. But I mean, it was a horrible, horrible home life, on top of the amount of racial things him and I had to go through together, because he was black, and he was like pretty much like a unicorn, I guess you could say, in the town I lived in. And it was me and him. So if he got in a problem, I got in a problem. If he got in a fight, I got in a fight. If he lipped off to someone, I guess I'm lipping off to someone. It is what it is. I was always on his six. I would never leave him. And yeah.
Whew, heavy. Angel, anything to add to that?
That was heavy. And the first thing I was thinking about was what trauma had taken place. The two biggest contributing factors to suicide is depression and substance abuse. Depression, not just feeling bad for a little while and having some hard times, because we've all experienced that, but depression that lasts longer than 2 weeks, depression that can be diagnosed, something that can be treated if someone went to get help, and that's typically what trauma leaves us with. It leaves behind a road of depression that we have to navigate through, and if we don't have that help, we have no outlet. We have no outlet to take it out on. The highest population of people affected by suicide, or who tend to take their lives by suicide, are actually middle-aged white men. And we've already talked about how females are twice as likely to attempt. Some statistics, they're 3 times as likely to attempt. But males are more likely to go through with it. And most of that is because there's no outlet. And a lot of that comes from the stigma. Nobody wants to talk about getting help. You know, we haven't talked about mental health. We haven't talked about mental health and the need for getting help and having counseling services and therapy services and feeling comfortable to be able to go and get the support that we need. You know, think back to last year and this pandemic started and everything that went down in 2020 and the race wars and the riots and everything. 76% of the population had no access to mental health services. There's just not enough. There's not enough, and there's especially not enough in communities where they're unicorns or people that are brown and black and look like us. What do you do when you don't have mental health services to deal with the depression there's already a huge stigma about, and you have trauma that has left you on the road of depression? What do you do when you don't have an outlet? So when people don't have no hope, this is one of the reasons why they even consider suicide. They have no hope, and it's never about the people they leave behind. It's never about the friendships that they had in place. It's never about the family that they love. It is only about finding an end to that pain that they have suffered with for however long that trauma has taken over them. You mentioned not having closure. Closure is the thing you got to find yourself. You know, you got to find closure in knowing that you loved him, you were a good friend, and you would have done everything you could if you had known everything to do at that time. You know, and we that have been left behind have a tendency to continue to look for closure where we're not going to find it. I lost a friend in high school, junior year. He was Christopher Bruce. He was the class clown. He was everybody's friend. He always had a smile on his face. He was an athlete. He had a funny afro, walked around with a pick in it, always got in trouble for that pick in his afro. He was either the favorite of the teacher or the headache of the teacher because he was the class clown. But you could not be in his presence and not laugh. You know, I spent most of my high school years being bullied or ignored or the weirdo because I was a creative, and you know how creatives are treated in school. He never treated me weird. And I can't even tell you what classes we had together. But I would see him in study, and I would see him in the hallway, and I'd see him in lunch, and I'd see him in passing, and he would always have a smile on his face. What's up? Bump you? Something. You know, he was one that never picked on me, never cracked jokes, never said anything harmful. He was the class clown. So it was very unexpected. The morning we all found out that he had taken his life. And he used a gun, which is, you know, another statistic. 50% of suicides are done by firearm.
That's
more likely
how
with
Mitchell
males.
took his life as well.
Yeah, more likely with
That's
males.
also how Mitchell.
With a firearm. But nobody expected that of him.
Yeah.
Because of who he was and because he had this huge personality that you were just attracted to. You know, it didn't matter. It didn't matter who you are, what grade you were in. You know, you wanted to sit next to Chris because you knew you were going to laugh the rest of the day. Chris was being traumatized at home. He had an abusive family member. You know, he had some hard times with his stepdad, and we knew nothing. We knew nothing of this. All we saw was the grin. All we got were the jokes. You know, all we felt was the love. You could not have paid me to believe that was that Chris. When I heard people saying it was Chris, I was in my mind running down the list of Chris's it could have possibly been. But somehow I knew in that itself that that's the Chris they were talking about. It made no sense. There were no answers. There was no closure. I didn't get the chance to tell him how he probably saved me on many a day when I wanted to leave and not be in that place. Didn't get a chance to have those conversations. Didn't get a chance to tell him what his infectious smile or laughter or jokes did. There was no closure for that. And even the 2 weeks, if you want to talk about support, the 2 weeks after that, where the school was on top of it and counseling services and students were crying in the hallway and everybody was, making sure you got passes and could go to the counselor. And we even had an assembly, a memorial. His mom came. We all gave him pics. She left with a bag of
for his afro.
After that assembly, there was no more mention of Chris until graduation. So a year and a half of silence. The support gone. I don't think schools know how to, still to this day, I don't think schools know how to handle something like that. And I was in one of the top high schools in the country, and they certainly didn't want it on the news that there was a suicide at their school.
Yeah.
So there are just some things that nobody knows how to deal with it. The school can't deal with it. The counselors couldn't deal with it. And I remember telling that story at an event during Suicide Prevention Awareness Month, probably 2-3 years ago, and found out one of the people there was part of the counseling staff that was sent to our school to assist. Just me telling that story. And he's like, what year did that happen? He was part of that crisis team that came in. And he said they snatched them out of there no sooner than they got set up. They were sent. What happens? What is the aftermath? Where's the support for the students, for the families, for those friends?
Right.
You got to find that closure. And knowing the strength of your relationship and knowing how good of a friend you've been. And again, knowing what you know now could save somebody else. So because you went through that, you see signs differently. You see disconnect differently. You see, past trauma differently. You see, your friends that don't have outlets for their struggles differently. And you're in a position to save lives now. You have to let that be, part of your closure.
Yeah. It's very interesting. Sorry. I apologize because I do know we still have to hear Lindsay's story too. But it's interesting you say that, how Chris was a friend that just like was the class clown, had all this like positivity about him and treated you well and everything like that. And the last person you would think. So I'm making that my segue to Lindsay because I've known Lindsay since, God, Lindsay, it's been over 20 years we've known each other. I still can't wrap my head around the fact that grade school was so long ago. Lindsay's brother, Pat. It's been the 3-year anniversary, which was this past Monday, and it's not gotten any. It still is, yeah. So yes, Angel, when you heard about Chris, I was feeling the same way. When I saw that about Pat, I was like, what? No, there's what's going on. But Pat and I were in the same together. Lindsay will attest that I was around a lot. I was around a lot. Pat was just like I say, he was my, and you know what? At his memorial service, I believe, Lindsay, when you introduced me to your husband, you even said like Pat was the love of her life. So if she still remembers that after 20 plus years, that is like, if I could tell you what light he was just like the person everyone wanted to be friends with. He really was. He was just like, if you're friends with Pat, then you're cool, because it didn't matter what status you had. He was friends with everybody. He was that guy, and yeah. So Lindsay, like I said, I'm so happy that you're here, that you could share his story with us and just hopefully find some catharsis in all of this and
I feel
so
like
go ahead.
it is still surreal to be like, because as you mentioned, Monday was the 3-year anniversary, and as you said, like we've known each other for over 25, almost 30 years, like since Jameson. And you know, like in hindsight, I mean, hindsight is 2020, right? Like things make sense hindsight sometimes. And so Pat, I have 3 older brothers, and Pat, I'm the youngest of the 4 siblings, and we're all 11 months apart. And so, like my brother Mike, who passed away 9 years ago, was hit by a car and died tragically. It was like him, Kurt, Pat, then me. And so I think oftentimes the 3 brothers were compared to each other, since everyone knew we were all at the same school at the same time, pretty much. And so I think like when you look back in hindsight, you know, my mom was a single mom supporting 3 older brothers and me, 4 kids, and her mom. And my parents divorced when we were pretty young. And then like my dad hated Pat, like despised him. I mean, you would never think a father could hate their child. And for whatever reason, my dad hated Pat. And I don't know if Pat would talk back to him and would stand up for us. And my dad would hit him. But then my parents divorced. And I think Pat always kind of looked for a father figure in his life then, and like just trying to find someone, because my mom worked a lot, to like just be a parent too. And my mom's a very good mom, but Pat just always looked for approval, I think, for other people. And so he had 1,000,001 friends. Like he was friends with everybody. And in high school, we would easily have 100 people at our house without a doubt, because my mom was working. So we would have the craziest parties, which now would be definitely illegal. But this was like 20 years ago. And so I just 1,000,000 friends. And in grammar school, he went through like a Gothic phase. In high school, we went to like Loyola Academy, which my mom worked like 3 jobs to send us there, which is kind of different than most of the kids that go there. And he did a lot of drugs, a lot, you know, and he came out to us as being gay during that time. I think that's when he first tried to kill himself, which was more for like attention. Like it wasn't like a true act, but it was a cry for help. And then he missed like quite a bit of school. He had the most detentions there ever. He was temporarily kicked out and allowed back in. But like the teachers loved him. Like he, as I said, we had like crazy parties, and he just struggled. I mean, he did a lot of acid. He drank a lot, and he went to a few different rehabs that like our insurance could get, and he'd go for like a week and come back home and do well for a few weeks or a month and then relapse again. And so like that was just a cycle that happened maybe 1,000,000, I feel like 1,000,001 times, because it was going on for over, 20 years about, I would say. And then he like went to college for 1 week and was like, this is not for me. He just, I think, was always trying to find his like purpose in life, and his friends went to college and he didn't. So then he had, so many random jobs, but nothing that lasted for more than a year, and always the reason why he left a job was because they didn't like me or this or that. Like, you never really knew the full reason why. And then he started to steal from my mom, his partner, from us, for drugs, and I I know he did heroin. I don't know what else. Like he did pain pills. It was just kind of everything. And so then he would like get depressed and be potentially suicidal. And then he would go to, I think he went to a few different state rehab places because he didn't have health insurance. And so when you have no health insurance, no one wants you for like mental health. And or he would go to like a psych hold at whatever hospital for the amount of time, and then they would release him. And so he would do well again. And when he was doing well, he was doing fabulous. But he was also like a master of disguise too. Like you would think he's doing well, but then the next day he would relapse and would be hallucinating, and the police are calling you to say, we found your brother naked running through the forest. That was like New Year's Eve, I want to say. And so he had like frostbite on his toes because you're not supposed to run through a forest naked. And so, he it was just a cycle, and he would do really, really well, and then he would do bad. And I think he's been to almost every hospital in Chicago at some point. And he'd be there for a few days and get out. And then I feel like, so my brother Mike died in 2012. Like he was hit by a car walking across the street and died instantly. And like that night, Pat took, even if he took a Benadryl, he would hallucinate. And he took a Benadryl and like was hallucinating. He stayed with my mom and was like writing on the walls. And like, I went to her, she called me at like 2 a.m, hysterically crying. And I go in, it looks like my mom was robbed. And so she's dealing with her son who just died less than 24 hours and my other brother. So I'm taking him to like another family's house. And I was like, Pat, and he's like, and it was probably the most honest conversation, even though he was hallucinating. He's like, Lindsay, I'm just like fucked up. You just don't understand how fucked up I am, and I was like, Pat, like, what do you need? And he's like, I don't even know what I need, and, he slept for like 18 hours, I think. And then he was fine. And then a few days later, it was like another episode. And so, the last few years got like, he would, as I said, do really well. He would come over, play with my kids. We'd go out for lunch. And then he had like the ability to find, if you had like a Norco or anything in your house, he would find it. I don't know how. I would hide like all of our medications if we had like surgery or anything. And I don't know how he would find it. Like you think you're hiding it in the best spot. I would hide my money and he would find it and he would steal, and he just had that. I don't know how he found all that. And so I would ask him not to leave, but I would ask him to leave and then I'd feel guilty. And this went on the last few years, but then the relapsing happened more and more frequently than the last year. I would up until he passed away, where it was just like he was having more bad days than good days. And and he's like, he would say, I'm just in an abyss and you don't know how dark it feels. And and we would be like, Pat, like, what do you need? And we would bring him to the hospital because he's like, I just want to die. And they would let him go. They just didn't have a reason to, they'd keep him for 48 hours, and then I will never forget, I was in clinicals at the hospital, and it was like over 2 days, my mom was just like, your brother, he just seems off. I think he's taking something. He's just crying, just depressed. And I could just tell this time was different in my mom's voice. She's like, I'm really worried about Pat. And I was like, well, Mom, like, call him, and he would, the phone was off and he would text her then he turned it on and said, like, leave me alone, you know, and my mom was like, his texts aren't making sense. And it was like that, kind of that sixth sense. Like, I remember driving home from the hospital and I was like, Mom, I have a bad feeling about this. Like, I was like, call him. If you want me to go over there, like, let me know. And she's like, you know, it was just like we had that sixth sense, you know, and so he turned his phone off and we thought he was just sleeping. But then in the morning, I was already at the hospital and I spoke to my mom and she's like, I was up all night. I can't stop thinking about your brother. And I was like, you know what? Me too. I was up all night. And she's like, wait, I have like 30 missed phone calls, you know? And I was like, well, from who? She's like, I don't know. Oh, the Chicago police. And she's like, something bad happened to Pat, you know? And I thought, like, okay, they found him passed out somewhere. He stole something. You know, he got in a car accident, like, because he was in a few of those, like under the influence of whatever. And this time they were like, we are so sorry to inform you, but your son passed away, you know? And it was just kind of like, what? You know, kind of as you guys said, you're just like, really? I mean, and like, as I said earlier, it was like a 20-some year spiral. And deep down, I knew that eventually he probably was going to, because he was just getting worse. But you always have that hope that it will never happen. You know, you just always hold that hope, like, okay, next time, this is the last time, next time it won't happen, or next time it will be better. Or, you know, it's that, like, you almost like a child with that wishful thinking, like, everything's going to be okay. Everything is, you know, and, but it wasn't, you know, and, you know, my mom and I have talked with not just our family members, but, you know, we're still close to his partner, and it's like, what could we have done differently? And I don't know. And I was like, you could drive yourself kind of crazy thinking like, well, we should have done this and we should have done that. And I mean, he has been in the hospital dozens and dozens and dozens of times, you know, and he tried medications multiple times, you know, and it's like, you think, what could I have done differently? And I don't know. I mean, like, we showed our love to him. He knew he was loved, but yet he felt like he was always all alone, you know, and as you know, he had 1,000,001 friends, but even then, like, he kind of lost touch with all of them, you know, in the last, I would say 10 years, like when he really started to get bad, you know, and it's just, you know, you're like, maybe if I called him, or maybe if I did this, and I, you know, would have, could have, should have, I think, but you know, it's just, I mean, it's still kind of unbelievable, because it's like, oh, 3 years, and you always think you're going to grow old with your siblings, and to think like, okay, I've lost 2 siblings now, you know, who I think we were supposed to grow old with and have, you know, sister-in-laws and kids and grandkids. And, you know, and I think the thing that like hurts me the most is like the Pat felt all alone, and that my mom lost 2 sons, like tragically. My first brother, like, as I mentioned earlier, was hit by a car, and then Pat, you know, and my mom was like, I don't know how Pat could do this to me. Like, she already knows my heart was broken, you know, and now she's like, I can't believe Pat's being selfish. And I was like, I don't even think he knew I don't know what Pat thought, you know. I mean, only he and God knows. But I mean, the cemetery is like 2 miles from our house, and so my mom and my brother's partner go there multiple times a week. I take my kids there, and you know, he's buried next to my brother, you know, and we tell stories, you know, and there's some pictures of him and my kids, but it's not the same. And, I don't know if all this will make sense someday, but I, as we said, like I think our health system is broken, and I, uh, I wish he could have gotten better help. And especially sooner than later. But it was just, I think the system failed him too, because it's like we tried to put him everywhere when he asked for help, and very few places would take him or take him for like 2 days. And, it's not like a broken leg that you can do surgery and it's better, or you take antibiotics and you're better in a few days. It's like mental health it's a lifelong struggle, and it was just, I think he got tired of fighting it. It was over 25 years of, whatever pain that he had, and it just got too much for him, and as I told like Chrissy earlier in my like post, it's like, if only our love could have saved him, because he was truly loved. Like, we have a huge family and friends, but it meant nothing to the pain that he was going through.
Yeah. So one question. So, because he was, did he overdose? Was that what he did, or?
Oh no,
because I know
he jumped from a 15-story balcony. Yeah.
Oh.
So that's final. He jumped out of the balcony of his apartment, and so yeah, that's before he would overdose. Before. Yeah, but all the other times were, I don't say like a cry, but he would take something and call you and say, I took whatever. And, it's kind of like, if you're going to shoot yourself or jump off a building, those are pretty final acts, especially that like high up. And so it was like, oh wow, he was definitely serious this time, and as I said, like, I think he just got out of the hospital like 4 days prior, I want to say, and he was there like a month before that, and then he was there like a few weeks before that. Towards the end, he was like, he went to the hospital multiple times, and he would get out and be okay for a day or two, and then relapse and get depressed again. And then it was just like, I think at the end it was just like, I remember telling my mom, I'm like, this is just not going to end well. Like, this is not, like, it was just like, when you think you hit rock bottom, he hit a further rock bottom,
And it's not that he didn't want the help. He was just not finding the help that he needed.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he was wanting the help. He wasn't pushing it away. But whatever it was that he needed,
that is the most important thing.
That's what he was missing. Like, it maybe it was, I don't know. I honestly never knew that about your dad, Lindsay. To be honest, I never knew that about your dad.
Yeah.
And I don't know how anyone could ever hate Pat. He was like,
no, my dad was an evil man.
Especially a parent hating a child. I can't wrap my head around that either at all. But yeah, it's like you said, he would get the help, but I think he was just tired because he wasn't finding what he needed. And my heart went straight to you and your mom, because literally, you and I are both moms. I can't.
Lindsay, you touched on quite a few things that she got quite a few things that she touched on that I wanted to just shed some light on. The fact that there was a dual diagnosis there, you're not just dealing with mental health. You're dealing with addiction. You're dealing with substance use. That's a little more difficult to treat. You can't treat one without treating the other. So, rehab is never going to be enough if you're not treating the brain as well. And then the fact that, drugs and alcohol changes the chemistry of our brains. So it's very difficult when you're seeking out treatment. Again, you're talking 30 years ago, 20 years ago, when this began, we didn't have all the resources that we have today. We don't have all the knowledge that we have today. So that makes it even more of a challenge. The fact that he was trying to get help shows you that he didn't want to keep struggling. He said every time he hit rock bottom, it was a new low. It was a new low. There's a certain level of darkness that comes with depression, that comes with mental health, that people can't always see their way out of. It's not that there wasn't enough love to save him. It's never that. It was more darkness. It was more darkness. Being too tired to fight, that was a long fight. Talking a couple of decades worth of struggling and trying to get help, and eventually that pain, takes over. We got to treat the pain. We have to start with that, treating the pain, treating the depression, treating the mental health, so that we could get to the bottom of why are we using drugs? Why are we running away? He had a large family and he had lots of friends. He wasn't alone, but he felt that way because he was isolated in the middle of that pain. So I really want to hone in on the fact that there was nothing else for you to do. This is not a counseling session. So I told Chrissy I'm gonna do my best not to do that. This is not a counseling session, but we have to step away from thinking it was something else that we could have done.
And that was the question I was going to ask you, Angel. Mm-hmm. That was actually the question I was going to ask you, like guilt, survivor guilt, self-blame, thinking I could have done something, Rick still struggles with that too. I should have done this. I should have done that. I could have done this. And it's like, how do they work through that? Thinking that they could do something. And that's something that you struggle with for a long time. But
it's just something that you have to work through. Being confident in the relationship that you had with that person. Being confident in knowing that you would have done even more had you known what to do at that time. Knowing that darkness and that pain, it was no match for whatever was happening at that time. Knowing that now that you know the signs, like we talked about, now that you know the signs and you can recognize them in somebody else, you can save a life. You're in a position to save somebody else's life because you've experienced that trauma, because you've been through it. You can see somebody else going in that direction and say, hey, I know this feels familiar. Okay, what do you need? What kind of support do you need? How can I help you? I'm here. I care. I love you. What can I do? And knowing that above all else, you're doing everything that you can at that moment. We're not God. We can't save everybody, but we know that we can do everything we can to bring hope, to be that light in the middle of their darkness, to be the support that they need, and not being afraid to ask the questions. When we talk about steps to saving a life, when somebody's in a suicide crisis, I always go back to the QPR Institute and what I've learned from there. And the first question is always asking somebody, are you suicidal? Are you thinking about taking your life? Do you not want to be here anymore? What are we talking about? If they're talking about the pain and tired and not wanting to go on, you have to use the word suicide so that they know you're serious. You're serious, you're listening, you're supporting them, and you want to help. That's the very first question. Are we talking about suicide? So that they know that your parents And most people who aren't serious or aren't thinking that way, no, that's not what I'm talking about. No, but I'm listening. So this is what it looks like. I'm asking you, are we talking about suicide? Asking them if they have a plan, so you know how serious they are. You is this something you're planning to do? And making sure you can persuade them to get help, sharing your struggle. And at this point, but sharing your story, sharing your struggle, we've all been in very dark places. We've all been at our own version of rock bottom that we can share with somebody so that they can see they're not alone. Other people have been in this kind of pain. We've been in this hole. We felt isolated, but we overcame it. We got through it. We got past it, and we can help somebody else through that same tunnel. And then being a referral source. I love that you had the phone number up for the hotline, but also being willing to sit with somebody in the middle of their grief, being willing to call a family member and let them know, hey, something's not right. You need to check in on your sister. You need to check in on your brother. You need to, you need to actually go where they are, driving them to a family member, driving them to the hospital, commit everybody and lock them up and keep them. No, they're going to do an evaluation and make sure they're not them somewhere if they need assistance, or get them to their family or friends or spouse or significant. So being stability, prevention is everybody's responsibility. So knowing those things and knowing how we can step in and being willing to step in, that's what we take away from it. This is what we can do if we're in this situation again.
Yeah. Whew. Well, you guys, I appreciate you all for coming on the show tonight.
Can I ask a question real
I
quick?
apologize. He had to bounce out,
He has a
but
question.
yeah, go ahead, Mo.
This Angel, I want to ask you. You mentioned a little bit ago about the differences of the resources that are available now, as compared to like 20, 30 years ago. Because of now, like like in 2021, it's much more common now to be able to talk more freely and openly about these particular subjects of mental health awareness, suicide prevention, being able to be open with people in terms of like availability, say I'm here for you if you need anything. You see people on the timeline, they'll say, hey, I'm doing a mental health check on people, are you guys all right, check in, show some love, whatever like that, and everything like that. So it's now like ingrained into the conversation now. It's like in our lexicon now, where this is something that's normal, right? I think she dropped out. Hold on.
She dropped out. Maybe she'll come back.
Yeah.
I know she was
Yeah.
breaking up a little bit, so
Yeah. She's back. Okay.
Yeah.
There she is. Hey.
I heard ingrained in the conversation.
Yeah. Yeah. So right. So now it's ingrained into the conversation. It's part of our lexicon now, where this is kind of where it's normal. It's normal to be able to talk about this compared to how it was 20 years ago. Have you, and indulge my ignorance, please, but have you seen like for lack of a better term, like an improvement in terms of the numbers or the rates of suicide, compared to how it was when these types of conversations were very taboo and we're not in our regular circles where we felt comfortable and free enough to be this honest and open? Or is it kind of like the same because, you know, like obviously population continues to grow. Now social media contributes a lot to, you know, it's social media is a whole new element when it comes to contributing to suicide. Like, has there been any type of like improvements, numbers wise, when, you know, compared to how it was a couple of decades ago?
Short answer, not enough. Not enough. Suicide is still the 10th leading cause of death in the U.S. That number I haven't seen move in the last 5 years. It's still, I believe it's 11th in Illinois. It was 10. You know, it teeters between 10 and 12. It's not enough. You know, when you think about the fact that according to census, every 40 seconds, someone dies by suicide. You know,
I saw a statistic on average, there's 130 suicides per day.
per day.
And I feel
You know,
like
it's
during
not
the
enough.
pandemic, it's gotten much worse because during the pandemic, people have been so isolated. And if you're used to seeing people and now you're at home and you're almost forced to think of your own thoughts, you know,
Absolutely.
that's all you have, you know, and
Yeah.
I think drinking has gone up, drug use has gone up in the last year and a half. I, you know, am in anesthesia and I feel like I see, you know, I know weed is legal, but so many of my patients are like, well, I do this to cope with my anxiety, like marijuana. I do marijuana daily, but it's not a drug. But it's like, well, but it is, you know, and it really changes your anesthetic requirement. But it is a drug. It's just a legal drug, you know, like alcohol is illegal. It's legal, but it's a mind altering drug, you know, and I don't have statistics on it, but I can just tell you from my own personal experience. I feel like in the last year and a half, so many of my patients have increased like their antidepressants or marijuana use or drink, you know, and you're just like, wow, this pandemic has taken a toll, not just on us, but I think on kids too, you know, and it'll be interesting to see how in the next, you know, few years, like the statistics that come out of during this time of what depression rates going up or anxiety and addiction. I mean, I don't have numbers, but I'm gonna imagine, I wouldn't be surprised if those numbers are drastically elevated compared to
They are drastically elevated and they have increased so much so that they can't keep up with these statistics. Any statistic that you'll find today regarding suicide is for 2019. They haven't even released 2020 statistics yet.
Wow.
They haven't even released it. And I find it very odd that marijuana became legal right before this pandemic started. Right before. So yeah, it was an increase in mental health conditions and diagnoses, mainly because of that whole isolation piece. People who weren't in social settings, people who had a problem. You know, I don't because I'm at home. But people who had a problem being at home, you know, people who had to work from home, who were used to being around people, people who lost their jobs, lost employment. There are so, you know, we expected there to be an increase in the population because people were at home doing what they do with their partners and producing babies. And what we've seen is an increase in divorce. Because we found out that I really don't like you that much when I got to be with you all day. That's an increase. And well, don't look at him. Look at yourself. Don't look at him. But there was also people finding out I really don't like myself that much. Lindsay said having to be alone with your own thoughts, you know, and finding out how dark it really has been inside your head. A lot of people were dealing with that. I love the fact that we have access to online counseling services now. People can go online and get a therapist. Any budget, any time of day, you can find somebody to talk to. You can text 741-741, and you can text crisis line 24/7. Somebody's manning those lines. In addition to, the suicide hotline, you can text somebody, you can email, you don't even have to call somebody. We have a number of resources that people can utilize if they need that. It's still up to us to get that information out there so that people know where they can go, because people still have a stigma about leaving their house and going into a professional building that has a psychologist and people seeing you and seeing where you're going and knowing you're going to see your therapist. As much as we talk about therapy and hashtag self-care and everything else, there's still a huge stigma around it, especially in Black and brown communities. Because the thing is, we should know how to get over stuff, right? And we're so busy trying to get over everything that we don't get through it. You got to go. You have to go through darkness. You have to go through the struggle. You have to go through depression. You don't go around it. You always got to go through it. And we're still in a society where we want things instantaneously. Microwaves, pictures, text messages, instant messenger. We want it to happen right now. It's not going to fix you today. Nor are you broken and need to be fixed. It's a condition, something we live with. Your brain works differently. Your body responds differently. You need different support. We have to get rid of that stigma so that people can feel comfortable about getting this help and this support that's available. And people have to know where they can go. So if I don't want to talk to somebody on the phone, but I know I can email or text them, I'm good. I can do that. If I don't have insurance, but I know that these services are based on my budget, then I know I got somewhere to go. If I'm in a community that doesn't have those services available, I should be able to get online and find some. And hopefully I got internet to be able to do that. Because what we found during the pandemic is that a lot of households didn't have access to internet services.
That's incredible. Yeah.
How do we make it
especially
accessible for
kids.
everybody, and how do we get rid of the stigma?
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. Does anybody have any other comments or anything else they'd like to add to our conversation? This has been wonderful. Very
Thank you.
just eye-opening, emotional, and just incredible. Lindsay, did you have something?
Oh no, I just wanted to say thank you. Thank you for facilitating all this.
Thank you. Absolutely. Thank you. I'm really glad that you wanted to agree to come on here and share Pat's story with us. And everybody who came on here to share your stories. Thank you so much. I know it's not easy. It's definitely probably rehashing stuff that you haven't thought about in a long time. But I also hope that this was some kind of catharsis for you all as well. And just kind of, know that you're not alone. And, we all here love each other. And, if you ever feel alone or you need someone to talk to, we're here, So I hope I'm coming through. I feel like I'm in slow motion right now. I'm looking at my screen is going a little slow, but yeah, just thank you guys so much again. I appreciate you all.
The last thing I would add is to keep sharing your stories. Keep sharing your stories. If you've lost a loved one, friend, brother, keep sharing those stories. Their memory lives on as we're sharing that message, and we're giving hope to other people. Never feel ashamed about telling the story. It's part of the process. It's part of your therapy, being able to talk about them without breaking down in tears every time, but being able to help somebody else so they can see, the support that you give and what it takes really to support other people that are in that situation. But keep sharing.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right. Anybody else? All right, you guys. Thank you again. I hope you all have a wonderful night, and we love you all. And the
Thank you.
information for the suicide hotline will be in the description. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you again. Love you all.
Bye.